Hello guys, I'm gonna show you a really cheap smiter build for doing the Pandemonium event on Plugy. We are using black flail for crushing blow. You can buy 3 open socket flail from Farah in normal act 2. Lionheart body armor for great stats and resistances. Rime shield for cannot be frozen. I made this in a pally shield with only 6 all res on the base, so it's about as bad as it gets. 3 open socket helmet with 2 RALs and a Tal rune for resistances. I bought 20 IAS gloves from Anya in Hell. 40 light res boots again from Anya. Faster run walk is convenient but not mandatory. On swap we have a Lifetap Wand. I also put a spirit shield here on swap to cast Lifetap a little faster. You can go with another rime shield on the swap if you like. I have no cannot be frozen on swap, so it means that I can still get frozen when I go to cast Lifetap, and that kinda sucks sometimes. For Mephisto I put on this helmet with 3 Orc runes. With this I can use Fanaticism against him instead of Salvation, and I can still be alright. We are also going to make a cold res ring, a light res ring, a Prismatic Amulet, and a crafted blood belt. The most important of these is going to be the blood belt, since that will be our only source of open wounds. The belt I made rolled pretty bad, unfortunately. Having only 5% open wounds against the organ bosses can get ugly, but I'm still gonna give it a go. Next up, you put on enough stat points to equip your gear. The highest strength requirement I have is 109 for the shield, so that will be my goal. I'm checking my resistances to see how screwed I will be against Mephisto. If you can get up to 300 light res against him, that will be great, since that means that once you are under his conviction aura, you will still be capped. For the skills, I max Smite, I max Holy Shield, I max Fanaticism, that will be my main offensive aura. I also max Defiance for some extra defense from the Holy Shield. I also like having Cleansing and Vigor on all my paladins, so I spend a couple of heart points to get them. You can put a point or 2 into Salvation to have an easier time against Mephisto, or put some points into the resistance auras to increase your resistance cap. I decided to go without them, just to show you that they aren't all that necessary, so I left 17 skill points in the bank. Cast your Holy Shield and put enough points into Dexterity so that you can get 75% chance to block. The amount of points needed will depend on your character level, the ranks you have in Holy Shield, and the shield that you are using. If you are doing this on a lower level, you might not need as many points as this. Every other skill point I have goes into Vitality. Make sure that your keybinds are in order and that you are fully repaired. After that, you are good to go. You can drink thawing and antidote potions to increase your poison and cold resistances. They will give you a plus 50 bonus and increase your max resistance by 10. Their duration stacks, so you can drink a whole bunch of them to get a longer buff. A smiter with this kind of gear level is honestly pretty bad at fighting big groups of enemies. so you probably want to skip as many of them as you can. Sometimes when you are running away from a bunch of enemies, you can try to stun them in the doorways so that they block the entrance from the mobs that are following them. Sometimes when you do get surrounded, you can try to get a life tap off on the mobs to keep you alive, and then you can use the corpse explosion charges from the black rune bird to deal with the masses. Or if you happen to have a decent melee weapon like Greaves for example, you can use Seal to deal with them. Lilith is honestly the most difficult of all the 3 organ bosses. As far as I know, she has the highest physical damage of any boss in the game. If she crits you, she can deal up to 1100 damage to you with one hit. If you are planning to do this with a cheap geared smiter, I recommend having at least 1200 HP, so that you won't get one shot while you are taking her on. This paladin is level 95, so I have that going for me at least. If you happen to do this on a lower level, you probably want to have at least some small charms and grand charms that grant you life or whatever in your inventory. And never fight Lilith with amplify damage on you, by the way. You can go to town to get the curse removed from you, or you can use cleansing aura if you like, it doesn't really matter. You can see that my weapon actually gets broken here towards the end of the fight. I noticed it as well, but I decided to keep on going. Having the weapon broken means that I do lose the crushing blow from the black rune word, but crushing blow doesn't actually do anything with the boss at this low health anyways.
At your service.
The Furnace of Pain is actually reasonably dangerous for a character with this low gear level. As you can see, I immediately run into a huge group of monsters. If this happens to you, you can use these small bridges to your advantage. If you have any sort of choke point, it means that you won't be dealing with all of them at once at least. Once you find Izual, try to get him separated from the rest of the monsters. That's usually pretty easy to do, since Izual is really fast and he uses teleport, so you can basically outrun the rest of the enemies while keeping just Izual on your tail. I didn't do a really good job of it here. I also have some hotkey confusion going on. I couldn't cast my life tap on top of him, and I have to use a whole bunch of full rejuice to compensate. I also keep accidentally casting the town portal for no reason. One annoying thing about fighting these bosses with bunch of ads present is that targeting can actually get really difficult sometimes. Here I have to recast life tap, and thanks to that I lose target of Izual. I swear to god I tried to retarget him, but I just couldn't fucking do it. And if you are not hitting the bosses, it also means that you are not proccing open wounds on them, so they will start regenerating health. The open wounds proc will set the boss regen value to a negative number, so it basically cancels it out. 5% open wounds is on the low side, but it's still doable if you are constantly hitting the monsters. Once you find Duriel, you can lead him towards the red portal that you used to enter the area. You can keep charging to stay ahead of him. There are no monster spawns near the red portal, so there you know that you will be able to fight him in relative peace. Duriel isn't the most difficult boss fight, but it can take you a long time with this kind of gear level. He has very high block chance, very high physical resistance, and on top of all of that, his Holy Freeze aura will slow you down even if you cannot be frozen. Once he gets down to low HP and your crushing blow ain't doing that much anymore, it means that the last slivers of his health will take a long time to get through. Also, having just 5% open wounds from your gear is really bad against him. After the organ bosses, the Ubers themselves aren't really that big of a deal on Plugy. Only Mephisto can be somewhat challenging thanks to his conviction, but even he's basically just a tank and spank gear check. Just make sure you don't fight all of them at once. Diablo is easiest to separate from the rest because he has very aggressive AI and fast movement speed. Keep Lifetap up on him, and he isn't much of a challenge. Against Bale, my only real advice is that you should keep mana potions on you to deal with his mana burn. Mana pots will restore mana gradually, so they counteract the mana burn a little better than full rejuves. Mephisto's Conviction aura lowers all your elemental resistances by 125. You can use Salvation aura to make gearing for this fight a lot easier, but I chose not to do that, just to demonstrate that you don't really need it if you're standing in the right spot. I've discovered that his charge bolts often form this sort of cross pattern that's centered on him, so if you are standing in between the lines of this cross, you won't be getting hit by them a whole lot. If you are interested in seeing an unedited version of this run with no narration, I will upload it to my channel later. I hope I was able to demonstrate that you don't need very good gear at all to do the Ubers and Plugy. The stuff I used here is just junk that everyone should honestly have access to. As you can see, I got a pretty decent sword torch for my trouble. Here I'm doing a quick mouse over of the gear so that you can actually see that I did it with the garbage equipment I showed you in the beginning of the video. The stats you see on the character screen here are higher than they were in the beginning because I picked up the torch. Thanks for watching the video, you guys. I'll see you later.